Hello, this is one part of my process of working on my aquaponics, and this is going to be how I power the system using these two 90-watt solar panels on a trackable roof mount. And this is how I put the system together. I used, this is just square steel stock you can buy at the hardware store. These are the two 90-watt solar panels. I set up the frame that's going to hold the panels, and that's the first thing I put together. Now, if you have different size panels, you know you can adjust this these dimensions and these sizes to fit that. The key to this whole system is this base, and the base uses threaded rods on each side, and it pivots in the middle. And what this does is, if the pitch of your roof, if you have to mount this to your roof, which most people will, you need to be able to adjust this thing up and down and side to side. And with these adjustable threaded rods, you can do that. As I'm showing here, this is the actual going to be the track of the panels. After I test fitted everything, I hung it all up and painted it, and now I'm test fitting it on the roof. And I used a pretty cool website called suncalc.net, and it shows the track of the sun for your location. And I was able to use that to help line everything up and get it set up. Okay, now it's I'm working on the actual actuator, and I used an old 14-4 drill that I had. I took it apart, took the motor out. Used a 3/8 threaded rod and installed that into the end of the motor. And then I'm using a 2-inch PVC pipe, and I heat that up, and I get it super hot so I can actually wedge this. You'll see how it fits together. It actually press fits together, and once it cools, it locks this thing into the tube. So once I got that in there and it's cooled off, and I make sure that I get it lined up perfectly, you can see, I cut the end off, and it ends up being about 11 inches long. Now for the end caps, I use this right here isn't schedule 40. This is like a schedule 20. And for the end caps, I use a schedule 40, the heavy duty end caps, because they're actually going to be part of the mounting process. So they need to be the thicker end caps. I used these 5/16 by 2-inch eye bolts with 5/16 wedge anchors into 1/2-inch EMT. And that's how I make my rods for that allows this thing to go back and forth, the actual actuator rods. The wedge anchors fit in there super tight, and then once you tighten it up, it is not coming out of there. Now this is how I mark the center of the 2-inch end caps, the PVC end caps. And what I did was I made sure that the wood was on a level surface. And then I leveled the cap perfectly on top of this thread screw, and then I just pushed it down, and that gives me a mark dead center. And so I did that on both of the end caps. One of the end caps I drill at the 5/16, and the other end cap I drill at 3/8. One is going to fit on the bottom part, and I'll use one of the eye bolts. This eye bolt here is the 5/16. Then on the other side, that actually gets attached to the threaded rod that goes down into the drill. Now some of this stuff is is out of order. You know, when you're doing the R&D stuff, you're taking things apart, putting it back together, trying things out. And I'm filming the whole time, and sometimes I film some things, and sometimes I don't film other things. So I try to put this in the order of things that you need to do. So sometimes you may see something out of sync, like you may see a bolt that has the washers welded on, and other times you won't see them. But try to put it in some kind of order for you. Okay, right now this is the 3/8, and this is the part that's going to go on top of the motor. Now, before I do that, I take some epoxy and I epoxy the threaded rod into the end of the drill. And I do that because, you know, I made sure it was really tight, but this is going to be closed up, and it would be really hard to get to later if it came loose. So by adding this epoxy, sort of ensure that that this won't come apart later or come out. So I fill this end piece up with epoxy and let that lock together. Then I use a lock nut, and I run that down almost to the end. Here you'll see it's about 1 inch up. And what this is going to do is the cap is going to come down, and you want the cap to cover about 1 inch of the PVC. Now, if your caps are really tight, you may need to sand that. This one was loose on top of this pipe, and it actually is going to spin over the pipe. So now what I do is I silicone this, and then I'm going to put a washer and a nut on the top also. And then I'm going to lock this piece down. And what happens is when this drill is turning, that cap is turning also. But it's going to allow for a watertight seal as far as rainwater. You know, obviously you can't put it underwater, but in the position it's in on the stand, there's no way for water to get inside to that motor. So I lock this down. And it's siliconed also on top. And then I'll hook it up to a battery here, and I'll show you how it spins. Make sure you don't glue this thing. The top does not get glued to the PVC. And as you can see, you hook it up to a battery, and it spins along with the motor. It spins on top. All right. These are the ends, and this is how I made the connectors for to connect the cylinder to the stand. And what I did was I just welded some 3/8 washers on. I bolted it on and then welded them in place onto the eye bolts, and then later I come back and sand that, grind it up, clean it. This is what it looks like after I tack it. And then later I clean it up, and here it is cleaned up. And this is what I do is this is how I connect it to the. You'll see later how I connect it to the stand. Now once you do that, you get those welded up first. Then you come back and you put the eye bolt into the bottom. Now this is what I was telling you about things being out of sync. This one, you know, I did it this way and I ended up having to take it back apart. But this is the other cap, the 5/16 hole, and you bolt this in. And you want this super tight. And after you get this tightened up and put in, you're going to drill a hole for your electrical cable. Mine ended up being 5/16 also, and so I drilled a hole next to this, and that's this is how I put the electrical cable in. I run the cable through, and on the other side I tie a knot into it so it can't be accidentally pulled out or pulled on the connections, because this cap is going to be glued in place. So once this cap's on there, you don't want to have to get in there and mess around with anything. Also, what I do to make sure the connections are good is I solder them. So now these wires get soldered to the motor wires. And it doesn't matter which wires go to which, because later you're going to be reversing them to make the actuator go up and down. So I solder these, and then I also put some wire nuts on them. And then put it in the end and glue this cap on. This cap gets glued on with PVC glue. And there it is. It's set up now. Now later I'm gonna give you some actual dimensions of the rod and the end pieces. Again, this is, research and development, right? So I ended up cutting this thing like 5 different times to get the right length to make it work. But this is where I started, so this was like the longest point that I started at. And I primed and painted it. And then now on the actual rack, I installed another of the eye bolts. And this is how I connect them together, connect the actual rack to the cylinder. There's the one on the bottom, and then here's the one on the top. This is a stop I use. The way it works with the way the cylinder goes up and down, it needs a stop on one side. And also, these panels are real heavy, so I use these heavy springs. And this helps neutral out the panels. Also, it helps with any kind of wind. It helps buffer that and keeps them from rattling around. And then I used some fender washers screwed into the steel and then screwed into the side of the panels. And that's how I mounted the panels to the rack. Okay, this is how I fine-tune the adjustment of the panels in relationship to the sun. Take a pencil, mount it to a board, and as you can see how the shadow shows off the pencil, as long as there's no shadow, then the panels are perfectly lined up. And I set it on top of the panels, and I align it up with the sun using these adjustments, and that's how it works. Okay, now I'm just taking it through the range of motion from the starting position all the way to the finished position. In a future video, I'm going to show you how I wire the panels and the motor all to the controls, and how I get the panels to track with the sun. But I'll make a separate video on that. Well, that's all for now, and I hope in the near future I'll have the other video up and running, showing you the way I get it to track. So thanks for watching, and take care.